My friend, if you're struggling finding, vetting, training, and managing virtual team members for your real estate business, I have the solution for you. Call Magicians is the premier virtual assistant company in the real estate industry. And basically what they'll do is allow you to focus on closing more deals and doing the things you love while they handle the work for you. Head over to callmagicians.com and see if you're a good fit to work together. And make sure you use the promo code FLIPEMPIRE for a 20% discount off your startup fee. And by the way, the owner's a friend of mine and shares tons of value, gives a lot of useful tips on episode 540. So check it out at flipempire.com/540.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
This is episode 555. My name is Alex Pardo. I want to welcome you here to the Flip Empire show. And I want to just go ahead and start by expressing a huge debt of gratitude to all of you who have reached out to me. Those of you who have taken the time to leave ratings and reviews. Those of you who have taken a minute or two out of your day to send me a message on Instagram in my DM or Facebook Messenger. There's been so many of you, and I'm just so thankful. I know I've said that a lot on this show before, but I just want to express the level of sincerity hopefully is coming across on this podcast that I so appreciate it. You know, these messages, the words of encouragement, the support on the podcast, the support on my storage journey with Ascend and just everything in between is just so appreciated and welcome. You know, I hear so many gurus and thought leaders talk about the haters. And I think when you achieve a certain level of success, and that's a relative term, right? Like, what does that even mean? Success to me might be very different to success to you and others. But, you know, when you put yourself out there, whether it's through a podcast or whether you're speaking or on social media, you open yourself up to criticism. You open yourself up to being susceptible to people hating. And you know, I'm fortunate while I've had my fair share of haters, you know, I think like many people who have platforms, I don't focus on it. I almost don't even acknowledge it. And I'm in such a zone right now where all I see is, don't get me wrong, I think there's a place for constructive criticism. And while I let it land on me, it kind of bounces off me because I know what's coming from the right place and what's just hate, what's just envy, what's just jealousy, or whatever the case might be. But you know, just today, this morning, I woke up and I got a message from Matt, you know, and he mentioned, hey, keep up the podcast. Was at an event with my mentor and your podcast kept coming up in discussion. Just wanted to let you know that you're crushing it. And that meant so much to me, you know, because believe it or not, you know, my podcast is, it's certainly not the biggest out there, although last month we had record number as far as downloads, and the podcast continues to grow. And so I'm so humbled by it. You know, it's 5+ years I've been doing this, but it can be lonely at times. You know, I don't have a show like Joe Rogan or like some others, you know, some friends of mine where it's in a fancy studio where I have somebody sitting across from me face to face. And that might be coming. That might be coming. So be careful. But sometimes it's lonely. You know, I hop behind this microphone and it's not lost on me that tens of thousands of people listen to this show. But anyway, I'm humbled by it. So I really appreciate you. I want to take the time to read a couple more. Go Bucks 34, Wealth of Information. The Flip Empire show is fantastic and contains a wealth of information. This is a show that everyone should listen to. I learned a lot on how to raise money on episode 552. Check it out. So guys, that's just one episode I want to encourage you to check out. I have an overwhelming amount of feedback from the last 2 episodes when it comes to breaking down the self-storage facility that we just acquired in Jackson, Mississippi. I broke down lessons learned. I broke down the mistakes, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. So definitely check that out, episode 554. You know, and today there's something I wanted to kind of share with you that was on my heart, and I wasn't planning on it, but I just hopped off a coaching call with one of our awesome Ascend members. And speaking of, you know, we're about a week and a half out from our Ascend Mastermind retreat, and we do this 3 times a year. The level of deep discussion, masterminding, intimacy, and the level of vulnerability that is expressed in those rooms cannot be duplicated, and it cannot be expressed, nor would I divulge anything that really goes on in that room because of the confidentiality, and that's part of the reason we have an environment and a culture where people can open up and they don't wear a mask, and they share what's really holding them back in their lives and in their businesses, and why I'm so grateful for that community. So I'm super, super pumped to host our next mastermind retreat along with my friend and partner Steve Cavanaugh here in Miami, and I'm so excited about that. But I was on this coaching call, and without getting into any specifics in detail, there was a certain level of anxiety that I could sense, looking at this person on Zoom, and they shared several times how something they were dealing with, this challenge in their business that was outside of their control, was weighing on them. And I just felt the pressure that he was putting on himself. And, so we asked him, we continue to ask just several questions. One of the questions I asked was, step back for a second and look at the big picture. What are you gaining by going through this situation, and what's right about this situation? Oftentimes, when we approach a different angle at a challenge that we perceive we're facing, or even just a flat out challenge, something going on, something doesn't go as planned, I think one of the things that's been really, really helpful for me is taking a step back and looking at it from a different angle. It's so easy to get caught in our own world and kind of drown in our own challenges. And then sometimes these issues, these problems that we face can manifest in different ways. It could have you feeling nervous. It could have you feeling anxious. It could have you feeling stressed. And what ultimately ends up happening is that most of the time, there's a saying that says pressure makes diamonds. It could also burst pipes. And so that's a double-edged sword. And you can choose to have pressure work for you, but there's a negative pressure that sometimes we put on ourselves that prevents you from being the best version of yourself in your personal life and in your business. And the irony in this particular situation was that the very thing he was wanting, by this added stress and pressure that hadn't even happened yet, he was preventing that very thing that he was after. Or let me restate. He could be potentially preventing the very thing that he's after, the very thing that he's looking to accomplish. So I think we have to be very, very careful not to create problems where one doesn't exist. And that's not to diminish the particular challenge that he was facing, because I've been there and I understand exactly where he's coming from. But I think that's the power of surrounding yourself with people that tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that's one of the things that Steve pride ourselves on, is when we coach people, there's a level of accountability that most of the time that person doesn't have anywhere else in their life or business. And it's not our job to make them feel good. It's our job to get the very, very most out of them by asking questions, by challenging them, by holding them accountable. And that's exactly what our entire community does. So one of the things I shared with him, which is really the heart of what I want to drive on today's episode, it's going to be a short but sweet one, is, if you're going to feel a negative emotion around a certain situation, let's say you lose out on a deal. Let's say, you have a bad month. A lot of marketing dollars are going out. Not enough profit was coming in. Let's say you have a disagreement, or you have a fight with a business partner, or whatever, right? Any challenge that life hits us with, particularly ones that are outside of your control, right? And particularly ones that sometimes we think a challenge is coming down the pipe, but don't start to feel a negative emotion without it even coming and being here, right? And in this particular case, he was feeling a lot of anxiety about what may happen in the future, and it was really weighing on him. But I said, I told him, I said, dude, why are you feeling anxious about something that may not even happen? If you choose to feel anxious about it, or if it makes you feel anxious, experience that feeling when it actually happens. Like, don't put that on you now. Like it's just because at this time, what I'm seeing is that it's wasted energy. It's negative emotions that, whether you realize it or not, are like ankle weights while you're trying to run a race of business and life. And you're choosing to put these ankle weights on, and you're trying to run this race while you don't even have to. It's not a race meant for, like, you're in other words, don't put on the ankle weights and go slower if you don't have to. If you're going to choose to feel anxious, or if that's the way it's going to make you feel, embrace that feeling when the challenge actually is in front of you. And then the other thing I shared is, if this is such a big challenge that you think is going to happen, instead of spending that energy worrying about it, how about if we were to take that energy and shift it towards the direction of figuring out how you might overcome that perceived challenge? So in other words, instead of feeling anxiety about it, don't feel anxious about it, and just shift and ask yourself a different question and say, okay, if in the future this happens, how would I then handle it? Or what might I be able to do now that could potentially prevent or even eliminate the chance that may happen in the future? So oftentimes, whether you know it or not, the answers that you're trying to figure out and discover to the problems you're currently faced with now, or the problems you may be faced with in the future, are already inside you. You just have to attack it from a different angle. You have to ask yourself a different question. You have to surround yourself and have people in your corner that are going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So I'm hoping this kind of hits you between the eyes, because this is something that, by the way, this is an episode I rarely listen to my own podcast episodes. I may have listened to a handful, throughout the years. And this is one that I need to take my own medicine on, and sometimes I need to remind myself of this very thing. A, control the controllables. B, don't start to feel anxious about something that may or may not even happen. If it does happen, then choose an emotion that's more empowering versus disempowering. And then C, if you really think there's a challenge up ahead, start to think about how you might deal with it. It's similar to, like, when I hop in my car and I use the GPS system on the dash or on my phone. It gives you the option, save 2 minutes by going the quickest route, or do you want to go this route or that route? Well, it's already given me, like, it's giving me an option to save time and to go a different route to avoid the upcoming traffic. Think of it the same exact way. If you think you're going to be faced with a challenge in the future, how can you go the quicker route, or how can you go the easier route? And by thinking about that, asking yourself the right questions and coming up with solutions on how you might approach something, what I think you'll find is that it'll reduce the anxiety, and it'll allow you to just operate in the most efficient, best possible way. So these are just things that I want you to just be thoughtful of. My good friend Mark Evans talks about thought audit, and this is where that comes in. Start to think about how you're thinking about your challenges. Does that make sense? Think about how you think about your challenges. And are they real challenges, like legit challenges, or are they things that you think might happen? And if so, are you wasting any energy on those potential issues that might not even happen? So that's what I want to leave you with on today's show. I got to bounce. I appreciate you. Really, really, really looking forward to the next podcast episode. And as always, I so appreciate the love. And even if there's not love, even if there's not support, and you got some constructive feedback for me, you said, Alex, I really wish you'd do this, or talk about this, or have this person on the line, or maybe you need to slow down, or maybe you need to, whatever, right? Maybe there's some fillers I throw out there from time to time that I don't even realize. Send them my way. Send them my way. It's all welcomed. And either way, I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you. I see the comments. I see the ratings and reviews. I see the podcast growing. And that's because of you. I take zero credit for that. I'm just a messenger. So appreciate you. And I really look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Take care.